Okay, so here's what we got. Okay, so without actually counting some of the dots in this picture, you kind of want to come up with as many ways as you could get to the answer without actually counting each one individually, right? So you don't necessarily want to be able to sit here and count each of these 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of thing, right? Kind of want to come up with a tactic where you can figure out how many there are within a split second, almost. That's kind of the idea, right? So, and there'd be multiple ways to do this, right? I, right off the top, would see that there's 5 in the middle row, and then 4 on top and 4 on the bottom, right? So I know it's 5 and 8, right? That's my kind of attack angle. Does anybody have a different one? Just something different than the way I would have done it. The nice thing about some of the questions like this is all of you are going to see it differently, right? Here's another one that just popped in my head, right? I see 3 rows of 4 and then an extra one floating at the end. So I get, essentially what I get is 4 times 3 and then plus 1. So 4 times 3 would be 12, plus 1 should be 13, right? Right? These are just 2 ways that I've seen it. You don't necessarily have to do it that way, right? That's why we're trying to get you guys to come up with your own, right? That's just, those are probably, I'm pretty good at this, so that might be a quick, a really quick way, maybe as fast as you're going to do it. Some of you might be okay to go 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, right? So I see 3 3s is 9. And then I see the 2 2s on the end, so plus 4 should equal 13, right? All sorts of different ways to kind of look at something and come up with a total. But you're always going to you're always going to use some form of basic math, like multiplication and addition, right? In order to actually come up with the total in your head, right? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any other ones? Again, these are just me, I haven't necessarily stared at these and come up with 10 of them. There's just the ones that are coming off the top of my head, right? You're going to try and do the same thing, right? No other ones? Okay. So 13 total. Lots of different ways to do it, okay? Let's take a look at the number line for a sec, okay? I don't know how many, have you guys ever seen negative numbers before? Yes? A little bit? Some of you? This is, I don't know where you guys are at, that's why we're doing this. We'll start at the ground floor and we'll just build our way up so that everybody's on the same page, right? Same skill set, right? So maybe some of you haven't seen negative numbers before, right? So the trick is sometimes, you'll see at the bottom, sometimes you we'll have 2 numbers, one of them's negative, and we're going to subtract some more, we're going to add 2, right? The number line's handy in the sense that you can just stand at a value and then just work your way around whatever it tells you to do, right? So if we move to the left from anywhere, that's typically subtraction. Or it is subtraction, okay? If I move to the right on my number line, that's going to be addition, okay? So let's just take a look. You guys, that's why I printed out that number line for you on your desks. Let's take a look at the first one. That's a relatively easy one, okay? So we're gonna and I'll just step you through what happens, okay? So we're gonna start at 1, okay? So you're gonna go to your number line, you're gonna stand at 1, and then you're asking yourself, am I gonna add 4 or am I subtracting 4? That's gonna indicate which direction you move, right? Either left or right. So I'm standing at 1, and then it tells me to add 4. Well, that must mean I'm going to move to the right, because it's addition, 4 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where I land. At 5, right? Now your calculators do stuff like this for you, but sometimes, in my experience, even in like grade 11 math class, like university math classes, kids make sign errors, like they can't add a negative number or subtract a negative number. They make a sign error, right? With the number line always kind of keeps things in track for you, right? You're standing at a certain spot, and you're either going to move left or right, depending on what you see, right? So that's what we're just going to practice doing, okay? So that's the first one. Let's try the second one. So we're going to stand at 6, okay, from here. And then I see the minus sign, so I'm going to move 3 left. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3. That's where you end up, at 3. Now the hope is you guys do more and more of these, that the number line is buried in your head, and then you're always visualizing, I'm standing here in the number line, I'm going to move left, or I'm going to move right. You might not necessarily need the number line past like day 3 or 4 of the scores, right? Hopefully. That's the hope, right? So if I stand at, let's try the next one, because I'm starting to make them, like, as we move down the page, I make them a little trickier and a little trickier, right? So I'm going to stand at -4 for this one. Okay. And I'm going to add 7, which means I'm going to the right. Okay, so you can just get the count 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I land at +3. You don't necessarily need to write the positive either, okay? You can just write 3. Okay. Next one. You can pick up the speed a little bit. So we're going to stand at 7. And then we're going to move to the left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. To 3. That was just the opposite. Okay, what I wanted to illustrate there for you. Okay. Can everybody see the similarity between these two statements? Okay. What you can do, and this works because it's addition subtraction, there's nothing wrong. If you didn't want to start at a negative number and you wanted to start at a positive number, there's nothing wrong with flipping the order of these two things. That's like kind of a little mental trick for you, right? If I say -4 plus 7, there's nothing wrong in your head of going 7 minus 4. You're going to arrive at the same number. Because most people, and I'm the same way, I don't necessarily like having to start at a negative number and then move around from that negative number. I inherently like starting at a positive number and just subtracting or adding. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You can see, because the proof's here, we arrive at the same number, right? So why don't you make it easy on yourself? You use the math skills that you've been doing for the last 10 years, right? You're going to start at 7, and you're just going to go left 4. I think that's easier than starting at the negative number and moving to the right, actually. Okay. Is it okay? Nothing crazy yet. Okay. All right, here we go. So I'm starting to make this a little bit harder, in the sense that you haven't seen stuff like this before. What do you think this means? What do you think happens? So I'm gonna here's the tricky question with what I've given you. We're gonna start at 5, right? And then the next question wants you to add and subtract, it looks like, right? How do we do that? Yes. Do you know?
Can you just go back 9?
Yes. Why did you say it goes back 9?
Because it says add -9.
Okay, you're adding -9. In math, what's more powerful, a negative sign or a plus sign? A negative. If you see a negative, it kind of overrides the plus sign. Okay? So if I add a negative, the negative actually dominates the plus sign. And so it just turns into 5 minus 9. Okay? So that's what you're going to do. So you're just moving left 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That takes me to 0. And then another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I arrive at negative 4. Okay? I might add one more to the end of this, just for, because I didn't have it here, okay? Negative 4 minus 5. You can see these are all pretty similar, right? You guys are getting the idea. Start at negative 4, go left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And now we have the same thing that we just finished seeing above. We're going to start at negative 6. Right? And then I'm going to add negative 1. Negative dominates. Add negative 1. We end up at negative 7. Now, here's the fun one. I'll add this one. Okay? What if I went 4 minus negative 3? What happens now? Your process doesn't change. You're still going to start at 4, right? So everybody can start at 4, right? Because that's the starting number. Is it? Is it? Okay. Why did you get positive 1? A positive. Yeah, the positive and the negative can't be together. But what's this one? Subtraction of the negative. What happens? Who wins? Is it negative 1? Oh, good question. Good question. I like this question. Who wins? There's 2 negatives there. Which one? Okay, so it's positive. It's a positive number. Is that what you're saying? It's positive, or like the number of your answer is going to be positive? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Is it going to be a big positive number, or is it going to be a small positive number? This is a good question. It's amazing what you can uncover, right? Like, this seems like the start of this lesson's like, oh, this isn't that bad at all. But then there's little tricks hidden in math, and then we always like uncover things, right? There's always a way to make things harder, and this is probably as hard as you're going to try and see this, or see a question like this, right? As hard as you're going to see. We said our dilemma is we don't know what happens, or we know what happens when a negative meets a positive. The negative wins. But with this one, we don't know what happens when 2 negatives meet. Yes? Yes, it is. How many steps? Okay, here's a rule for you. And I'm just making this up. This is my rule. It's patent pending. How many sticks are in a plus sign? 2. Well, if you see 2 sticks, they're going to turn to a plus sign. Does that make sense? That's going to be 7. That's good. So neither of the two, it's like a compromise. Neither of the 2 negatives win, they just turn to a plus sign. Does that make sense? Okay, so on the back, you guys have like tons and tons of questions, okay? Hopefully you come across a double negative. Hopefully somewhere, okay? I told you on the bottom of the front side which questions to do, okay?